Hi, welcome to another edition of the Sedona Scene. I'm Ron James, and with me is a special guest, Lois Hollis. Lois, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Now, Lois has a very interesting story. She discovered through her own personal journey some approaches to everything from self-healing to psychology itself, and decided to encapsulate that into a film. And Lois, you've been working on this for some time. Can you tell us a little bit about this story?
It all began probably about 30 years ago when I wanted a way to heal from my depression. I was always so depressed, irritable, and anxious, and that's probably because of my abusive childhood. I tried therapies, but they only put a Band-Aid on it. I felt a little better for a little bit of time, but I never felt healed. I always felt depressed.
Let me ask you something briefly. Did the culmination of all this time and all this trial, did that actually create a situation where things were getting progressively worse for you?
Well, my physical health got worse. My emotions probably were about the same, but the long-standing depression and stress had finally taken its toll with migraine headaches. The drugs that I were taking practically damaged my liver, my heart was bad, etc. So I was really more physically ill at that point because of the years spent in the depression.
And you were actually part of the healthcare profession. This isn't something where you were just, someone with no knowledge that it was having this perpetrated on her. You were actually a part of the system.
Yes, I'm a registered nurse and had been in the healthcare field since I was 12 years old. My ex-husband was a physician, and my daughter is a doctor.
Wow, that's amazing. So I guess we won't keep people waiting any longer. You finally got to a point where you decided that the pills and the regimens were having more harmful effects than good effects, and you decided that it was time to seek out another solution. And is that how it began for you?
It really began that way. I just began to write, and I journaled and journaled as per the therapist's suggestion was to continue to journal. My journaling took another approach, though, when I journaled and wrote to my emotions individually rather than just writing and writing and writing.
So you actually addressed your emotions, and that's what we do in the film.
Exactly. The emotions, after I addressed them, I felt individual characters within my own childhood. And that was the major point where I began to start healing, because I had someone to heal. The person, the emotion who was ill, had someone to look after them and to teach them another way.
So was this like an epiphany where it all of a sudden happened at once? You suddenly, like, it dawned on you that maybe my emotional makeup could be characterized, or did it develop over time, or how did you discover this?
I didn't really think of it. Through the writing, and my heart was leading me, and I was just totally amazed at each day that the closer I got to the emotions, knowing them, learning about their life, their inner life, which is my outer life, that I became more and more calm, and I could see where the problems could be resolved. They were showing me what needed to be solved. They were guiding me. I wasn't guiding me. My emotions were taking me on their journey.
And how long did you have to acknowledge this before you finally decided and were inspired to create something that shared the whole concept with other people?
Many people came to me, my friends initially. They wanted to know what was I doing that I looked so much better. I had my emotions were better, and they wanted to know what I was doing, so I shared it with them, and they wanted to know if they could do it too. And I said, sure, let's do it. And they had the same incredible results.
And so now, as that whole concept evolved and you put more and more recognition into it, it finally took shape in your mind to make a film, and you created characters out of the emotions, and you illustrated how it all worked behind the scenes for you. Before we go into what it is, let's just take one moment and take a look.
Shame-fixated sweetheart at her age in the blackness of my unconscious. I couldn't reach her. Something was blocking us. Sweetheart told me that she did not want any hope I could bring forth. She also said that the world would be a better place without her. Immediately, all my suicidal thoughts came back to me. Sweetheart was the root of my suicidal and depressed feelings. Once I stopped taking the headache and depression pills, we are free enough to develop a relationship. I began to see and feel Sweetheart clearer. I was uncovering my true self. I was feeling for the first time in a very long time.
The reason I made the film was because I gave many workshops to illustrate my process of healing. I thought that a film would help each person have their own inner vision by seeing my inner vision.
So this is a journey that took a lot of conviction and a lot of time. I mean, to decide, okay, I'm going to go actually to a film school, learn how to make video, learn how to shoot film, and learn how to put characters into place and green screen and all the stuff you learned, and you graduated.
Yes, I did.
And what was that like for you to be that committed?
It was total. It was a total commitment of heart, and I know that my process works, and I want to share with other people how simply and easily and naturally they can heal themselves by getting in touch with their own emotions and not spending 30 years trying to find a way to heal. And that was my commitment, to share this with others.
Well, that was pretty striking. The whole way that the film was shot and the characters, the way they portray themselves and the look of the film, it's like there was a lot of thought put into it. Are people able to relate to these characters as their own emotions as well?
Yes, it's because people can, since I have shown them my emotions, these emotions have an emotional energy that goes past the film into someone else to help spark the life of other people's emotions.
So the film's working on some different levels,
Yes.
enabling people to connect to
Yes.
themselves through seeing how this works.
Yes, an
in your
interdimensional
process.
level.
Wow.
Because the emotions do live in that interdimensional space of time. There is no time. So that a person can talk to their emotions as if that emotion was when the adult was only 6 years old. So there is no time stand still for these emotions.
So what you're advocating here is a whole process of identifying your emotions almost as characters and then connecting with them in dialogue, inner dialogue?
Yes, they are characters. They are childhood characters that have been frozen in time because of trauma. And in the therapy, the person goes into their own emotions and makes friends with the traumatized emotion, heals the emotion, and then the person can heal spontaneously, quickly.
And so this has both emotional and spiritual and physical effects when you actually do the process.
Yes. I came to learn that the emotions are like a quantum piece of the soul, and that all these subpersonalities are fueled by the emotion. So once you heal the emotion, then the whole spectrum of that personality is healed also.
Now, there's a lot of self-help therapies out there, and some of them are a little bit scary. You've got to confront this and face that and heal through this, and they actually make people nervous. But your process is different. It's actually, you told me it's actually fun.
Yes. Most of my clients are happy and they're laughing because the emotions are really inner characters who just got the wrong message. And it's really a lot of fun. It's like a detective story. It's really a lot of fun to find out each part of your own character structure. And they're fun. They just got the wrong message. Like, you know, you were told you couldn't have a lollipop when you were 4 years old, and that part of that emotion got injured. And you go in and say, it's okay. Daddy just didn't have the $5 to give you that lollipop. And so you make friends with that emotion rather than blaming, rather than shaming. I find that a lot of the traditional therapies are shame and guilt producing, and that's what causes the fright. the fright is caused because of the shame and the guilt. When you take away the shame and the guilt and just talk with the individual emotion, then you're not afraid. And you can go back in time. And that's why you can heal any trauma, because you remove the shame and the guilt.
Have you talked to people that are in the fields of psychology and self-help about what you've done, and what kind of response have you gotten?
It's kind of mixed, because some therapists feel threatened, and some of the other therapists are like, wow, that's so wonderful. It makes everything so much easier. Also, people can still go to traditional therapy using this technique, because they can take that aspect of their personality that needs help to a therapist, rather than talking to the full self. Just talk to that individual personality, and they would cut off years of traditional therapy.
Now let's just to simplify it, is say you've got different emotions that are causing different aspects of your personality to manifest, be it your health, the way you act towards other people, the way you interact. How do you go about, by using your techniques, how do you go about actually identifying and discovering which of these need to be addressed the most?
Since the emotions are quantum parts of the soul, each emotion comes forward to be addressed when it needs to be addressed. That's the beauty of this process, because it's a natural ability of the soul and the emotions to heal by themselves. When an emotion comes forward to be healed, then they're ready to be healed. In traditional therapy, the therapist tends to go in and takes an emotion or a situation to be healed. In this process, we wait for an emotion to come forward that's ready to be healed. So it's an automatic thing that the person themselves are involved in.
So emotions are components of the overall soul?
Correct.
And they're actually viable portions of energy that go into that?
Yes. And the emotion is a quantum core of the personality. For example, when an emotion, say depression, is healed, then, and that was because of something that happened in childhood, when that emotion is healed, all the depression forward through that person's life is instantly healed, because you're healed at the core of the problem.
I'm still trying to really wrap my head around the concept. So we're saying that these different emotions are actually part of the components that make up a human soul.
Correct.
And you're saying that these emotions themselves are living parts of the soul as emotions?
Yes.
So that the soul and the energy of the human consciousness is partially comprised of emotions as living aspects of,
yes,
of
this
the
is,
person.
I believe that the emotions are the bridge between the personality and the soul. So when a person
The
heals,
conduit?
yes,
Okay.
when a person, because we live here on this earth as physical beings, but we also have a spiritual side.
So if we have the energy of our soul here, and we have our physical being
Yes.
and our physical essence here, it's almost like the pipeline.
The pipeline
that
is
actually
the emotions.
connects all of this.
And
Okay.
the more healed an emotion is, the greater that pipeline
Right.
is.
So the more in touch, the more
can be
connected
with
you
your
can be
soul
to your
presence.
core self, your
A lot of
cosmic essence.
Yes, a lot of
so to
people
speak.
come to me to get more spiritual, and I said, to get more spiritual, you have to heal emotionally. And when you heal emotionally, that gives the bridge a deeper, wider area to work in.
Well, you know, that now that you've explained it to me and I've had a chance to analyze that, that makes perfect sense. Because, you know, it's just like people say, basically part of the spiritual journey is getting the basics down. You know, like if you can't be an honest person, you're not going to get to a point of being spiritually evolved. It's just like a big roadblock. And so I guess what you're saying is that the same thing is true about the emotions. Settle the emotions into a comfortable zone, a place where they need to be
healed.
They need to be healed.
And when they're
by the
healed,
things
they're
that happen
totally
to us in our
open,
lives.
and they don't put any crimp on your pipeline. The soul is here. The soul doesn't need any healing. Your big creative essence is always
it's
here.
pure and it's in good shape. And then now the soul and the ego and the emotions, are the emotions connected to the ego?
Now,
is this an ego-based?
What people call ego is many things. What I am interpreting you to say is that mind part.
The part that says I am a sentient creature myself. I am a sentient essence. I am Ron, or you are Lois.
Okay.
That is the ego, or the part that perceives itself as apart from the whole.
Okay.
And this conduit of emotions that connects us to, it ties into the whole way that human consciousness is separated from itself, and the whole illusion of separation that's been talked about in countless religions. It's just very interesting that you've tied it together in such a way that it begins to make a certain type of sense.
And it's a quick way to heal. I would say that the ego is like me, Lois. I am Lois, and I have an emotion that's called sweetheart, who is depression, who is my depression, who is now compassion. Yes, that I would call as me, someone's home. I am Lois, and that's my consciousness, and that you can call as ego.
Now, do you actually list the emotions out, saying that, there's 7 of them and they're the same for everybody? Does it work like that?
In my work, I have found that everyone has a variation on a theme, but essentially there's a basis of a hurt emotion, an anger emotion, an anxiety emotion, and a depressed emotion. And I also found that there's a hierarchy in emotions. And that's why you can get a person...
But those are all emotions that are, associated with sadness. Is there also an equal amount of joyful emotions, love, pain? Or
each emotion is, again, I feel is a quantum part, a hologram. Mm-hmm. So therefore, part of the anxiety emotion is anxiety, and the other part is intuition. So it just depends on how much anxiety you have and how much intuition you have.
Kind of like equal and opposite reaction, both polarities.
And the anger emotion is part anger and part passion. And the depression emotion is part depression and part compassion. Okay. My goal is to have all the emotions more on the positive side than the negative side. And everyone has a variation on that theme.
Let's take one more look now that we've had some time to talk about it. Let's take another look from another clip in the film. And this is where they're beginning to resolve themselves. And your main character, his name is King. And
yes.
Tell us a little bit about King.
I also discovered that there is a hierarchy in emotions. And that's why a person can get so far with talking with their emotions by journaling, etc. Because there is a female and there's a male part of the personality that's a little bit older than the emotions, probably in the teenage range, 18 to 21. The male tends to be a shame producer, which I call King, and the female part tends to be a hatred part. And the hatred part is usually younger than the King part by a few years. And they're the ones that block the emotions from getting into that conduit to the soul. So in order for a person to make really headway with the emotions, they have to confront the King and the Daisy, the hatred part of their personality. Once you make friends with that part of the personality, then the go-ahead is given to make friends with the emotions.
So here's another clip where King finally starts to get it.
You've gone too far. What's happening? This is so strange. Sweetheart, radar.
Oh my God. You're beginning to feel. Daisy did that. She got rid of hatred, so now it's okay for you to feel.
No. No, stop doing these things to me.
I understand why you built the wall. You built the wall because you loved us. You did it to help the family.
But I don't need anybody's help. If I don't have control, I'd rather die.
Being vulnerable won't kill you. It makes you stronger. It's part of growing up.
But you just want my help because I control the wall.
No. I want you because you're part of the family. There is a whole world of light and feelings on the other side of that wall. Go ahead. See for yourself.
King saw that his territory, as well as his power, could expand if there was no shame wall. If he allowed the wall to come down, King would be my partner in protecting the emotions. We would protect with love rather than shame. I, as well as the emotions, would be free to create with limitless possibilities.
So again, the characters are great, the look is great, it's just a really interesting film, and it's really conveying the whole topic in a way that's easy for people to understand. Tell us a little bit more about what people can expect on seeing the film and where it's going to go from there.
Hopefully my intent is for people to acknowledge their own emotions as part of them rather than to submerge them. The emotions are your way of getting in touch with yourself to become a whole person, but when there's peace inside yourself, then you have peace all over the place. You have peace forever. And once the emotions are healed, you have no backslide. So people can expect healing, not Band-Aid healing, healing on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level, because the emotions are on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level.
So Lois, I think you might just be onto something. And for people that want to find out more, can you tell us your website and how they can get in touch with you and view the film?
www.soulspeaks.net.
That's soulspeaks.net. Okay.
Yes. It's the emotions speaking.
Oh, that's great, great. Lois, thanks for coming. And
thank you, Ron.